So, as I mentioned, creation was 8 times larger than this map. This world was friggin' vast, right? Now, as you can also see with this map, it's a bit strange in that if you notice the elemental configuration at the top there, I'm just going to switch aid here because the problem is that book's slightly falling apart, which is one of the problems with it. That's better. You see, now at the top of this map, I'm sure you can see that there, is a very snowy, icy climate. To the east, you've got a very sort of woody climate. To the south, you have a desert, and the further west you go, the more watery it gets with a small archipelago here. And right in the centre, you've got the Blessed Isle. Trust me, that Blessed Isle, I know what it might look like, but that is actually about as big as Russia or North America. So, you know, it's big. Now, just imagine that, but, you know, 8 times bigger. That's massive. Anyway, but as I was saying, basically, you know, the way the world works, basically the world is flat. You know, it's by no means a spherical world at all. It's basically just a chunk. It's this plate of physical reality floating around in the wild. So the further north you get, because that's where the pillar of air is, the colder it gets. Further east you get, the denser the jungles become. The further south you get, the hotter it becomes. Further west you get, there's endless ocean, and right in the middle, where the pillar of earth, you have the Blessed Isle, which is blessed with constant and pure fertility. Now, basically, the Solars, as I say, they set about trying to create a utopia. Now, I'm not going to give any comments about this, but basically there's a huge sort of... I don't really know what to call it. There's a huge debate on the forums about whether or not this utopia was a good thing, or whether or not people were bored and left wanting for nothing, or... It's a bit of a grey area, but what happened is that when the primordials actually died, as, you know, great powerful gods and beings like to do, they hurled curses and, you know, all this sort of stuff at the Exalted and the gods and everything else. And nobody really thought anything of it at the time. Hey, we killed the primordials, nothing can go wrong here. And while this curse didn't really manifest with the gods, after a time it did start to manifest with the Exalted in different ways. Basically, the Unconquered Sun, his purview is essentially perfection. Now, the Solar Exalted themselves, yes, they have a portion of the Unconquered Sun's power, but they are, to all intents and purposes, human. So, in actual fact, the way this curse manifested is that it drove the Solar Exalted to complete extremes, emotional extremes, that are both destructive, decadent. You know, it turned them into something else. Basically, the great majority of them were gripped by madness, suddenly realizing that they can never be the perfect beings that, technically speaking, the Unconquered Sun has made them to be, and it's paradox. The Lunars, it manifests in different ways. You know, they can become overly caring, like parents to people. It's all very different. But since the Solars are the ones with the most power, they became bloody dangerous. Basically, the world was turning. The way they were governing the world, it was turning into something unwholesome, as the Sidrials saw it. They basically, the Sidrials realized that they really didn't know what was going to happen. You know, it's a case of the world was slowly falling back into chaos, and what would happen then? Who knows? So the Sidrials basically banded together in secret. They created a plan. They looked at the Tapestry of Fate. They chose several threads on the Tapestry of Fate and read down them. They saw 3 possible futures, an outcome if the Solars are left to their madness and their decadence and overindulgence. In one future, they stood by and did nothing, and the world itself spiraled back to the wild and was consumed. In another future, the Sidereals tried to reason with the Solars and their lunar consorts, and there was but there was no firm explanation of what would happen after that. The Sidereals seemed to believe that, well, there was a chance that everything could be alright again, but there's also an equal chance that the world would be destroyed. In the third option, the Sidereals saw that if they removed the Solars from power, then the world would be saved, but in a much diminished state. In their own arrogance, perhaps, it might be best to say, or maybe their own concern to keep things ticking over, the Sidereals chose the third option. They wove absolutely prolific magic that basically removed themselves from all knowledge of existence. They removed themselves from creation to watch over it, basically, and tug its strings like puppeteers from behind. Before they did so, however, they rallied the Dragonbloods, the Terrestrial Exalted, and basically poisoned them. They told them that the Solars' times are past. Look at their decadence. Look at the way they're ruling this world now. It's now time for the Dragonbloods to take over. It's now time for them to have their chance to rule the world and correct the mistakes that their leaders have made. Approximately 270 of the Solars, basically, a huge banquet was organised, and they are all here. They are all prevalent. They are all shown up. In one fell swoop, the armies of the Dragonbloods bore down upon the Solars. Thousands and thousands of these terrestrial warriors attacked their Solar Masters. In battles that basically shook the very foundations of creation, the Solars themselves were just about wiped from existence, along with quite a few of their lunar mates. I'll get to the lunars in a minute. This isn't to say that hundreds of thousands of Dragonbloods died. This is the power of the Solars. Even with an army of tens of thousands strong, you're gonna sort of get your ass handed to you several times over. But eventually, the Dragonbloods reigned victorious. And again, in their final parting act, the Sidereals, before they removed themselves from existence entirely, they crafted what was known as I'm going to call it the Jade Cage or something like this. And they trapped a huge proportion of the Solar Souls, probably about 270 Solar Souls, in this cage, and they sunk it in the inland sea off the coast of the Blessed Isle, and essentially making sure that these solar shards could not return to the circle of reincarnation, and therefore could not find new hosts to reawaken the Solar Exalted. Oh, sorry, this is long-winded. I do apologise. The Lunars, on the other hand, basically, they could actually, as all this was going on, a great majority of Lunars felt compelled to fight for their solar mates, and so died with them. However, they weren't blind to the malady, this madness affecting their mates, and so some actually just stood by idle as they watched their solar companion basically be destroyed. And maybe about half their number sort of escaped to the safety of the wilds themselves. And over the course of hundreds of years, the Lunars found ways to exist within the plane of chaos. And I think we're going to leave part 3, I think we're on. I think we're going to leave it there for now, and we'll see what. And I'll finish off the backstory of Exalted if you can actually stay awake in part 4. Won't be a moment. Catch you in a minute.